Super great.
Yes.
Super Greg.
Man in black.
He's the man in gray.
Man in gray.
I love it. Happy Sunday.
Thank you, sweetie. Welcome. Glad you're all here. It's getting a little bit cold in the mornings. I was cold this morning.
Yeah, it was like, dark 30 and you were up.
Yes, Friday motorbike in the dark. It was very cold. I was wishing I'd worn warmer clothing than I had worn. But then I got hot and I was full of sweat. So, Abraham, could you come up here, please? We're going to start off tonight by seeing if anybody can figure out how to get rid of this thing on top of Abraham's head today. But he's so proud of himself. Here, face the audience so they can get the full appreciation. It's kind of a unicorn, but they're supposed to taper at the end, not at the base. It is my lack of imagination. You don't know what a unicorn's horn is supposed to look like. All we have are these pictures in books, and they're all made up. You do have a new mic. You have to switch the... See this button on top that says mute?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, you did it.
Over.
All right. Is it working? It worked for me.
Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yay, we got it. Hooray.
Crank her up.
I'm so excited. We'll hope no more cracking, right? Well, maybe. We'll see.
The same people who wrap the cords around the other ones are the same people who wrap the cords around these ones.
I know. And that makes that happen, doesn't it?
Yep.
All right. Well.
Hey, Genevieve, could you turn that off, please?
Thanks.
Thank
Dave.
you very much, sweetheart.
All right. Anybody want to share what's going on in their life with the rest of us?
Oh.
Hooray for Hope! Hooray, hooray!
Congratulations, Hope.
Yes. Okay.
And it's tomorrow too.
And hooray!
Well, there you go.
You have the best birthday ever. So Anne was wearing this really cool top before she left for the summer. Did you recognize it?
I did.
You did? Yes, I'm very happy to wear it because I could only wear it like once and then it was too hot. And anyway, so I really liked her top that she was wearing and I told her I really liked it. And then after everyone left my house that night, back on my counter was the top that I'm wearing and I love.
I did not.
Thank you. She did have something on underneath, just so everyone who was concerned that Anne was walking around, driving around naked, she was not. It's a little see-through, so I think people were hoping there was something else on underneath of there, but you know, you never can tell, I guess. So anyway, super fun. So it's super fun to have gifts from friends, and thank you. I think it looks nice. I love it. Thank you. All right, well, we will release our kiddos then to go be champions and game changers and unicorns and all kinds of awesomeness.
Augie's working on something there. We don't know what.
Alex is working on something too.
Alex is working on something.
He's got some very important papers going on over there. Goodbye, sweet, precious kids. You guys have a fun day today. Hooray! So, Kristen, you want to come up and we'll give a little quick update on children's real quick before we get started. Does that sound like a good plan? I just called you Kristen. Sorry, Christy. I have been using the name Kristen a lot in the last year, so I'm sorry.
I'll take Kristen. I've definitely.
Sorry, Christy.
That's definitely a compliment.
Aw. So, Christy's been doing children's with us for like 2.5 years. That doesn't even seem physically possible.
It'll be, 3 in November?
Yes. It just makes
Since we've
me,
been
that,
in,
yeah.
yeah.
So, and Jocelyn teamed up with her, last year. And so together, they took care of our kids for all of this time. And I, for one, am hugely grateful. I know there's not a massive amount of kids. I mean, I think we've got a family year. We've had lots of other kids sprinkled in between, who are not with us right now, and may not be again. But the point is that they have opened their hearts and their lives to being passionate about our kids experiencing God's presence and not just learning about Him and not carrying a burden of, I have to do something for Him, but instead learning how to live life with Him, which has been really, really cool. But last spring I saw that they definitely needed a break. And so you guys know that we asked Jasander if she would just do a video series for our kids through the summer because we knew we would be light in numbers. And as we head into the fall, I really felt like it wasn't time she's been out of community in our services since we started here in this building. And I am just so grateful for that. I am so grateful for and every time I asked her if she wanted a break, she was like, nope, I just, the best stuff is happening over there, don't you know? And so I so appreciate that passion that you've had, but we want to shift gears, and we don't have our entire plans, but I just wanted for you to be a part of this conversation. Then we'll be talking more about it this next week. You'll probably, get a text from me sometime, but there, okay. Take it away.
Okay. So we, trying to just think for a second of where to launch into this, but we have yet to feel very settled in necessarily a curriculum with kids or, so Jocelyn and I over the last year have done a lot of planning on our own and figuring out what to do with the kids each week. Sometimes we do things that are consecutive as far as weeks go, but it's a lot of over the week asking the Lord what He wants to do with our kiddos. And we've looked at some curriculums, and they have a good plan. They're well organized, but they aren't us. As you can imagine, we are a little bit different than the flavors of other churches. So I know, right? Shocking.
And we've been really surprised about that because we had curriculums that we were really, really excited about, and they're really, really good.
Yeah.
But threaded through all of it is this heavy, I don't know how else to say it, guilt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That it's all on you.
Yeah.
And we just feel like the freedom of God's grand pursuit of us isn't being expressed in that curriculum. So it's been hard to kind of say, here, take this and run with it for a week or two or whatever. So anyway.
Yeah, so that has created a challenge just in that then what do we do as far as an overall plan for our kids and how to incorporate the best of our community in what we offer to our kids. So we are shifting a little bit in our thought process towards children's, and in that we are going to start opening it up to other people to spend some time with our kids and share their giftings and their abilities and their knowledge and love and experience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and again, this is just a brief, we'll get more detailed information put together, but we would like people to sign up, volunteer for a 3-week chunk of time, maybe a 4-week chunk of time of spending with our kids. Doing a 1 week in and out is just not enough time to actually get the kids, build relationship with anyone that comes in. We will have processes in place of how that can look, that time, but certainly we love our community and think that our children will get value out of interaction with each of us. So, and from a selfish place, it will give me a time to be back in here as well, which I value that, my time in my community, spending time with you all that way too. So that's coming down the pipe. We're gonna again look at maybe some other options of curriculum that if people don't have an idea of how they would like to spend that time, we'll have some.
Yeah, we will definitely have something available
Yeah, some-
for people as
yeah.
a guide.
And whether that comes from a curriculum or from Jocelyn and I sitting down and kind of laying that out, there will be that there and available. But yeah, that just takes a little bit of time. So
Yeah. So we'd like you to just consider that and look at your calendar and look at your schedule and your availability over the next 10 months and go, here's a 3-week slot, or here's 2 3-week slots, where I would, and you don't have to know anything of what you want to do. You don't have to know anything. You just go, I want to invest into our own community, and God has something for me to share. And if at all else, God has something for you to read off of a piece of paper. Do you know what I mean? Like, and just be with them. And I know that my kids' lives are so blessed by being a part of this community. Like, I got really upset. Darby's not here today. She's sick and running a fever, so we didn't. I know, I'm so sad. I can't even tell you. And we're supposed to be looking at homecoming dresses tonight, and we might have to do that by video with Taylor or something. Not for her, but for Taylor, because we want to see hers. But anyway. My kids have so benefited, and I got so mad at her. It was in just the last 2 weeks, Greg and I were both just livid mad at her. And I remember her saying to me, Mom, I know that you're upset, but I made a mistake. We need to get past it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've raised her so well. I want her to have more guilt and shame. I really do, because I want her to realize how serious this situation is. But she wouldn't own it. She just wouldn't. All the guilt I was heaping on her, she just wouldn't take it on. And she's just like, I made a mistake, I gotta move on. And I'm like, oh yeah, right? It's awesome. We make mistakes, we gotta move on. Move on. How many of us still haven't moved on? Right? So anyway, it's just a huge deal for my kids anyway, to be a part of something like this. Is just awesome. So anyway, yay, thank you. Yeah.
thanks, everyone.
Yay. So think about it, pray about it, and yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, so we are embarking on a 2-week series. I know, it's going to be 2 weeks, because Lindsay and Jared are going to do our week after that, so it's ending. Mm-hmm. It is really for real.
And I was just going to add on, if you don't even know the kids' names, the little ones, this would be a great chance to get to know their names.
Yes.
And they will tell you their names. They're not sneaky enough yet to maybe Aiden and Augie are sneaky enough yet.
Yeah.
But the rest of them aren't sneaky enough to tell you different names.
Yeah.
So
good. They're so sweet.
Am I right? Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger. That I would believe, actually. I believe on the middle name of the birth certificate. So this next 2 weeks, we are going to take on a topic that I'm sure all of you have been super, super wanting to do your entire life. And it is going to be a 2-week series on honor and authority.
Oh, yes.
Okay, what? Right.
You mean honor and obey?
That is not it. Trust and obey. Trust and
No, I was thinking of the marriage vows.
I know.
Okay. You already took it another way.
I already took it another way. So if you would put honor and authority up on the board, that would be super, super great. And some of you can throw in on your card, if you have a card with you and you take little notes or you make little comments. Is that me actually making? No, it's you, honey. Yeah, it's yours. Okay. Respect in there. You can throw respect in there as well. And I'd like for you to just take a moment and think about those 3 words and go, what are my responses when I think about the word honor, when I think about the word respect, and when I think about the word authority? Okay, so we're just going to take 60 seconds and go ahead and write your thoughts on that. Just like someone else's pen. Here we go. That's me, huh? And it's a brand new mic. Oh, it's not? It's an old one? Oh, and so they stopped using it. Okay. Well, that makes more sense. actually thought for a second you knew the Greek word for respect. I was like, what? What? And finally, it occurred to me. Aretha. Aretha is not the Greek for respect. Although maybe she should be. Oh gosh, that's funny, babe. That was actually funny. I have to give you props on that one. Are you doing the assignment? There you go. All right, while you're thinking, if somebody already got words ready to go, what do you think of when you think of these words? Obviously, Greg thinks of Aretha. Arias? Yeah. Thank you. Find out what it means. Okay, yeah.
For honor, I put, I choose to value you as God does.
Super good. Okay, who else? You can do any of them. You can do all of them. Do you have any others?
The mic runner.
Perfect.
For honor, I don't know, these weren't like definitions, these just kind of came to me. So, honor, to love something or someone with your actions. I feel like it's an active love, I don't know. For respect, I got something to be transacted. To give respect and to receive respect.
More of a transactional, okay.
And for authority, implementing your given kingdom.
Say it again.
Implementing your given kingdom.
Given kingdom.
Given
So,
kingdom.
Influence.
I thought all three had to do with our placement in Jesus. And I think I remember this jogs a memory of the Lord saying, I want you to be a diplomat and
Yes,
represent the
that.
kingdom. I'm sure I wrote that down. And for me, all three is how we represent the kingdom on earth. We use all three because of our placement in Jesus. We have the authority as the diplomat of the, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Good.
I'm so happy to hear all of these things are thought of with like positives for everybody so far. My reaction was different.
Great.
My sense of honor, for me, honor is a good word. It's like a 10 out of 10 word. So it's one who stands as a representative of, well, you'll understand the next one. So authority for me is either a tyrant, somebody who's a tyrant, a tyranny, versus somebody who represents goodness, truth, and beauty, which are the qualities of the kingdom. And then respect, to me, is a really difficult word. It's like a 1 out of 10 word that is hard for me because it just feels like duty. It's heavy. It's confusing. I don't always know how to do it right in a way that's pleasing to the other who's demanding it. So it's kind of not
So
a
it's
happy
super
word for me.
loaded for you.
It's a super loaded word that doesn't give me good feelings. I can hear like
Yeah.
respect. Yeah, you need
Yeah.
to respect.
Yeah.
So it has a really lots of like intense shame attached to it for me. Like I don't know how to do respect well.
Yeah.
So I kind of lumped them all together as well and just was, it's deserved in some places or undeserved, but still required.
So deserving is in there somewhere. Requirement is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And you honor and have authority and respect for who people are and their position. It's sometimes positional. And I just got alignment, order, and military for some reason. That kind of,
Interesting.
yeah, those 3 words.
Okay. Who else?
Yeah, I think honor to me is like recognizing the inherent value of someone or something, and kind of acting accordingly. Authority, to me, it's something that kind of flows down, or flows through. So, I always think of the centurion that came to Jesus and that said, "Hey, you don't need to come to my house. Just say it and it'll be done." Because I'm a man under authority. So he understood that as the more as he submits to the authority above him, that the power of that like flows through him. If you're bad under the authority that it's above you, then you're going to have little power. But it's the more that we, I guess, honor and respect the authority above us, the more that authority kind of flows through us.
Yep.
So.
Super good.
For me, honor was to treat with respect, to follow through, cherish, or a mitzvah with love, like an obligation with love. Authority is kind of similar, not to question, but to follow and obey. And respect is earned. You have to give it in order to get it.
Good.
So I told Ann I could relate to coming from that place, and I was just realizing that these three things in the world, most of us experience it being demanded from us or of us, and for honor and respect both, I put basically what other people have said. It has to do with valuing other people as human beings loved by God.
Yeah.
In spite of maybe their behavior, which doesn't mean that we don't pay attention to the behavior and act accordingly, but the value that we have as human beings, and that deserves honor. And then for authority, I put safety, security, and confidence, which kind of surprised me that I wrote those down.
Nice.
But, so when we're not seeing it from a place of it being something that's being demanded of us from somebody else that we really maybe don't respect because of the demands, or we don't honor, or we have difficulty putting ourselves in a place of submitting to the authority, I just think it's just totally turned around in God's kingdom, where it's to be something that is going to flow from our heart, and it's a positive thing and not a negative thing. I personally have had my understanding of that flipped over the last years, which is really nice.
It is really nice. That's so good. Thanks. Okay. Anybody over here? Yep.
I kind of see it as there's two different perspectives for each of the words, and either you either are perceiving them all from a victim perspective, or you're perceiving them all from a I don't know what the other word is. You're above that. So
Who said that? Culture of honor. You didn't?
I think I think the enemy has twisted all of those things to put them over us, to lord them over us, to say you must earn respect, you must honor your mother and father, you must honor all authority. And I think God has flipped that, as people are saying, like God, from God's perspective, He honors us. And we have the ability to stand in a place of honor and honor others.
Yeah.
As well as authority. We have a place of standing in God's authority and having that authority to trample underfoot everything the enemy says and does. And we stand in a place of respect from God for us, in which we can express that respect for others, whether it's deserved or not.
Yeah.
So there's, I think, two different perspectives, either from what the enemy puts on us or from what God has presented to us.
Right. That's good. Well, what I am hoping to have happen for us is for these words to become fully redeemed. So I love when somebody said, I have a history of this, or this is still in process, I have mixed feelings about this, or it's been flipped, or you actually just pointed out like there's different ways to look at these words, because I really believe that understanding honor, understanding respect, and understanding authority is a huge part of us owning that area that we're wanting to own with God. That territory that has once had authority over us, and we are learning how to have authority in it. That's a part of this conversation. And so many times, our mindsets that we're unaware of, right, influence our decision making and the way that we see things, and we don't even consider the possibilities. So I'm going to take just a couple of moments. Actually, I'm going to take a second and listen, because I have two different directions I want to go in, and I don't think I have time to do both. So I'm just going to listen for a second. Things that we say here and things that I say might trigger issues for you. Even these words might trigger things. But my hope is that we can all move past the offense into the beautiful revelation that God has for us. And I have found that revelation often is hidden right behind an offense. So if I'll get past the offense, I find this major treasure. So if I say something that offends you anytime, ever, my encouragement would be is to go to your inner place, go to the Lord and go, what is it that's bugging me about that? And what revelation is that triggering? Because it's almost like an offense is the X that marks the spot for great treasure in our lives. It's like, you know, when you did the gold rush, you went out and everybody was trying to find where is the gold, right? And it wasn't so much about getting the hard work done, it was about finding the veins of gold. And if you had a place where, if you had a way that you could divine or discern where the gold was, you would cut off all this wasted effort and time. And I've kind of discovered that the places where I'm offended are the X that marks the spot for where the gold is for me. Instead, what ends up happening is we build barriers around those places and go, I will never go there again. I don't ever want to put myself in that situation again. I don't ever want to be vulnerable like that again. I don't ever want to talk to someone who might talk in that way to me again. I don't want to ever expose myself. But that's the very X that reveals the place of treasure for us personally. So instead of walling ourselves against it, and I'm not talking about exposing ourselves to abusive situations, I'm talking about exploring with the Lord those inner places of offense. So,
I think it's kind of like in the business world, we use like agile methodologies is kind of the modern way of developing. Agile methodologies is probably the modern way of developing code.
Yes.
And there's a phrase in there that you always want to fail fast.
Yes.
And not be afraid of failure, but because it identifies, it allows you to move quickly, fix that, and move forward. So
super good, babe. Couldn't be more attracted to you than I am right now. So good. Agile methodologies. Who knew? So good. So I know, I saw him. Yeah. So it's that. So we can get offended and run away, or we can get offended because we're going to get offended and engage. And it doesn't really usually about the other person. And it's not usually about fixing the circumstance. It's about what's going on inside of me. So I discovered my very first exposure to the issue with authority, and I'm going to just tell you flat honest, when I take the temperament tests like the Enneagram and other tests, they'll always have a question, and the Enneagram's question, I fully know this, is, are you a rule breaker? Are you a rule breaker? And I'm like, gosh, I'm torn on how to answer that question. Because if you don't really feel like the rules apply to you, how can you be breaking them? Right? So clearly I am a rule breaker, except for that I'm
totally a rule breaker.
So much of a rule breaker that I don't even think there are rules. Now, if you think I'm bad now, you should have seen me as a kid, because I was raised to be a rule breaker. Now, my parents gave me some really great things. They raised me in amazing ways, and there's some really great qualities. But there was a little bit of a not so great, and that was that none of the rules applied to their precious, precious little children. And I was raised in that ideology that the rules didn't apply to me. And I know, right? You're like, and that does not work.
It explains a lot of things, doesn't it, Kristen?
So many things, doesn't it? So if I was sick on the day of a test, you just call in and tell them you're sick because, and I mean consistently you call, because the rules don't, everything is catered to you. And that works really, really well until you hit the real world and you discover that everyone's not willing to cater to you. And you discover that you have become wise in your own eyes. And that wisdom is not helpful because you tend to think that everything revolves around you. You think everything should revolve around you. And so you want to know how I discovered this was that Darby, as you all know, had autism. And before I knew that diagnosis, she was having trouble in social situations. And so she would, if we were at a restaurant, she would kind of lose it because it's a very stimulating, it's difficult. So all of those, and so of course I looked like a terrible parent and you want to correct the kid, but when you correct a kid with autism, you're kind of like throwing gasoline on the fire. And so it was becoming really, really hard to do anything socially. And we did not yet have a diagnosis, so we didn't know what we were dealing with. And I ended up having a friend who said, hey, and this is back in the day of cassette tapes, I know, ancient, and they said, hey, I have these tapes, maybe you might want to listen to them. And I had a 50-minute drive into the network that I was working in, and so I would listen to these tapes. And I will tell you that the guy took about 50 hours to share about 5 hours of content, but it was the best series, yeah. So it was really, really long and really verbose, but it gave me time to process. And it was on parenting, and one of the things that he was talking about was authority, which I was like, okay, whatever, whatever. I don't even know what that means really. And he was talking about what you want to do is teach your kids how to love authority. And I'm like, how do you love something you don't even know what it is? Love authority. And you need to teach your kids to love to do what is right. So this isn't about correcting them so that they behave correctly around you, because they're going to grow up and then they're going to do whatever. The point is to teach them how to love to do what is right and to love and understand authority. And he said something that I had never heard before. And he said, if you don't understand and love authority, it is very difficult to operate in authority. Because if you don't understand it and you haven't respected it and you haven't come under authority, you very oftentimes will find yourself operating in life without authority. And I was like, I don't even know what you just said, but I think there's something in that for me. So I started praying about this situation with Darby, and the Lord started to show me what I was wanting to do was to teach her how to listen to me. Even in the midst of her issues, it doesn't give her carte blanche to go crazy everywhere, right? And so I'm trying to figure out a way to raise a 3-year-old who has special needs, and I can't even get her to come to me when I call her. I can't get her to stop when she's in a dangerous situation. I can't get her to listen when she needs to listen, and she's totally losing it all the time in the parking lot and all these other places. And it's not doing her any good, and it's not doing me any good, and I'm freaking out and getting more and more scared by the day. And so I was like, I need her to be able to listen to me, right? And my authority. And the Lord said, how can you expect your daughter to come under your authority when you have never come under any authority in your life? You question all authority and you refuse to come under any of it. And I was like, ooh, shoot. And I'm like on the Tampa Bridge, 2 o'clock in the morning having this revelation. And I realized I was raised to resist all authority just because it had authority. But you want to know how this plays out in life? It's really funny and quirky. Because I'm going to just point out some things, because we're going to delve more into what authority really is. But it looks like being a bratty complainer. That's what someone who doesn't understand authority. So, for example, You go on a flight, you don't really like that you have to take off your shoes, you don't like that you have to go through the metal scanner, but you really do like that you're able to get on an airplane and travel from A to B really quickly. But you think that you have the right to complain about the people who own the planes, how they run their business. That's not If you don't like how a person's running their business, don't take advantage of what their business has to offer you. Right? Come under the authority of people who know what it is that they're, whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense, whether it's a mistake or not a mistake. Don't use other people's stuff and whine about it. Right? How many people complain about taxes? Lots and lots of people complain about taxes. Right? Lots of people try to avoid paying their right amount of taxes. Jocelyn's like, who is that, right? Who on the planet does this, right? Well, this is not one of those guys who complains about his taxes. But here's the thing, you're complaining about your taxes, but I've never heard anyone complain about the road that they get on when they drive down the street. I've never heard anyone complain about the fire hydrants that are everywhere. I've never heard anyone complain about the fact that if you're dying and go into a hospital, they will not refuse you service. Now, it might cause problems, but you actually won't die on the street, which in almost every other country might happen unless you have socialized medicine. All of the services that our taxes pay for. Now, is it run perfectly? No. But are any of us educated enough to actually know what we're talking about most of the time? No. Except for, well.
I raised my hand.
Because you don't talk about it unless you know. But do you see what I'm getting at here? That is someone who doesn't value, respect, or honor the people who are making the decisions to provide the service that you want to take advantage of. And that is what shows up in a disrespect for authority. Authority is the power to do something. That's all it is, the power to do something. The power to own a company that flies airplanes that can fly people from point A